How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Spontaneous Combustion from 1990. This is directed by Tobe Hooper, who you guys know for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Poltergeist, and a lot of other fun stuff, and stars Brad Dourif, who you guys obviously know as Charles Lee Ray, aka Chucky from the Child's Play series, and it's really cool to see both of them in a movie, and we're talking about spontaneous combustion, which, for those of you guys who don't know, is a real world phenomenon where they find people who have died by randomly being all burnt up, and the strange thing is, in real life, when this happens, nothing around them, except, well, sometimes a few things, but you'd expect the whole house to burn down if the guy inside of it burned alive, but it doesn't happen. It's a really weird thing, and you can do research into real-world spontaneous combustion. It's pretty weird, but it's cool that they took this sort of weird phenomenon thing and made a movie about it. And let's go ahead and dive right into the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points, as well as make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this movie is about. The movie opens up in the 1950s. We meet a newlywed couple who are doing a government test. They're in a bunker and they give themselves an injection. You see, they're testing a serum that's supposed to make them immune to nuclear radiation. The test goes well. The couple comes out of it okay. They're alive. They don't seem to have any radiation poisoning. But you left a newlywed couple in a bunker for a couple days. Turns out she's pregnant now. Pregnant during the time in the bunker. And she's going to have a baby that was born while she was on all this anti-radiation medicine. The baby comes out, seems to be okay, but has a perfectly circular birthmark on his hand. And they're like, other than that, it's okay, but you do see the evil scientists looming over them. And this is where you get the really cool contrast between, you know, the evil government 1950s, but also the sweet and innocent 1950s. You know, you see the government figures and you're like, okay, what's going on? And immediately conspiracy things start rolling in your head. But you see this nice and innocent couple and you really do think these are good characters and you really do follow them. And that's what makes the next part so tragic, is quite suddenly the couple spontaneously combust and the baby is taken up by the government and you're left to wonder what's going to happen. I really did like this 1950s part, and really it could have been the whole movie. It's such an interesting little section there, and you really did like the characters. But we move on to the future and we meet Brad Dourif's character. He has a different name than they gave the baby, but that's because he's been adopted and he doesn't really know too much about his past. He thinks his parents drowned when he was really young. He doesn't know about the spontaneous combustion, but we know it's him because he has the birthmark. But you get to see him in his life. He's a high school teacher. He has an ex-wife and he has a new girlfriend now. And overall, things seem to be going okay, or at least okay on his aspect of his life, but things keep poking in that he doesn't like. In particular, all these doctors and stuff that helped raise him or look after him when he was younger, they keep poking and prodding into his life, and he doesn't really like that. Later, he has a meeting with his ex-wife where he learns that someone who he had a feud with, but he's ready to apologize because he wasn't really mad at them, turns out they spontaneously combusted, which is really interesting to him. The ex-wife, I think it's her father or grandfather, shows up and she runs out to talk to him and kind of leaves him with a check at a relatively expensive restaurant, and all the waiters there are really mean to him, like, hey sir, you're gonna pay that check, right? And, you know, the whole situation, seeing his ex-wife again, getting treated like trash, and on top of all that, it's his birthday and she doesn't remember, he gets really frustrated and a tiny bit of fire shoots out of his finger. Now, that's a weird and strange phenomenon, and that's getting all the doctors, you know, he's like, oh, I burnt it a little bit somehow, but all the doctors are starting to look in on him again, and he's starting to get frustrated again, and slowly people around him do start to spontaneously combust, and you get him getting more and more frustrated as they're poking in on him, and the fire starts to come out, and that's really an interesting thing is there's sort of a subgenre in horror, the people with superpowers and it ends badly genre, and a lot of those, it's the people with superpowers get pushed too far and they start to destroy everything. But here, even though Brad Dourif is pushed to the edge and he gets really angry, he's not really the villain. They make it really clear the fire is the villain, and it's just as quick to destroy him as it is to destroy anyone else. You get several people who spontaneously combust, but whenever this happens, the fire inside of him goes really crazy and usually winds up burning some part of him, and you see that it's the fire making these decisions, and it's the fire that's hurting him too, and it is a really interesting take on this whole thing, and he begins to wonder just what are these doctors doing, and it becomes kind of a conspiracy, which is a pretty cool element. Conspiracy with the doctors, conspiracy with his girlfriend's giving him pills for like his constant headaches, and he has to wonder, okay, where did she get these pills? What does she know? Can I trust her? And the conspiracy element is pretty cool. You even get one of the doctors that looks a little bit like Dr. Brenner from Stranger Things, which I thought was pretty fun. And let's talk about the pros. The ideas here, the ideas of a conspiracy are pretty cool, and I always do like these elements. And the fire powers is a really interesting idea, and, touching on spontaneous combustion, really, really cool, and you do get some really cool special effects. Fire floating around, all these cool stuff. And you do get, of course, Brad Dourif as another big pro. Brad Dourif's performance is pretty cool. Now, when it's Brad Dourif and the world's picking on him, that happens a lot. And, you do get to see Brad Dourif just really upset because things are going terribly. But where Brad Dourif's acting really, really does shine is when he finally gets angry. I mean, Charles Lee Ray, Chucky, he never goes in that exact direction, but when you see him angry and you see him start to be affected by the fire, you're like, okay, you can see this guy's ticked off, and it's really cool, and that's really where his acting shines during that part of his character. The other parts, there are a few moments where he seems like Mark Hamill from episode 4 when people are pushing him down. He's like, ah, you guys. But yeah, when he's angry, that's the coolest. But as far as the cons, though, the story structure in this one, it's a little hard to follow. For example, quite confusingly, he opens up, the first time you see his character, he's with his girlfriend auditioning for a high school play. You see he's one of the teachers, and he's more doing this as a joke. But the thing is, Hollywood cast older actors for younger characters all the time, and at first I was like, was he supposed to be a high school student? He's a little old. But no, he's playing a teacher, but you don't find that out till lines of dialogue later on. Now, I actually, when I was doing research for this movie, found that someone uploaded a rough cut of the movie to YouTube, and I didn't watch the whole thing. The quality was kind of low, but originally, at the end of this scene, in the rough cut, he makes a joke. His girlfriend leaves, and they're like, hey, can we do anything for you? He's like, yeah, you can get me a better girlfriend, which sets up who she is. But then he also has a line, I'll see you in class, and that kind of tells you he's a teacher, and it's really just frustrating that they cut this line out. You get a good bit of humor with Brad Dourif there. He kind of like pretends to fall over in pain and stuff, but it also explains a lot more what's going on, and that is kind of a frustrating thing. There are several things, like he goes to dinner, like the scene I mentioned earlier, and the lady's really angry at him, and you're like, who is this angry lady? And it takes you a minute to go, oh yeah, that's his ex-wife, and maybe there are scenes and maybe there's dialogue that I just, didn't register in my head. Sometimes, movies will throw out dialogue too fast and I don't catch it, but there's, several scenes where I'm like, okay, who is this person? Who is that person? And you're doing like this big government conspiracy stuff, and there's like one scene, wait a minute, I didn't know that doctor back then, and there's like 3 or 4 different doctors, and I'm having trouble keeping up with which doctor's which, and they all have the same, vague yet menacing government doctor thing, and it just became a little hard to follow. I'm like, wait, which doctor are we talking about? What are we doing this? And it just kind of jumps into the present. You don't get a sense of what his life is like, and you're just kind of thrown into scenes, and you have to kind of figure out, okay, who is this person? How do they know Brad Dourif? What's going on here? And you have to kind of, piece it together more than you should have to, and figure out, okay, wait, that's that doctor, and in turn, the plot isn't fed to you in a super easy to understand manner. I mean, you get the gist of it. You get, okay, these doctors are bad, but, trying to figure out the conspiracy, like, if they had set it up better, they really could have played the conspiracy mystery angle a lot better, but as it is, the movie's kind of hard to follow, and maybe that's just me. Maybe I just can't read the movie well enough. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. But the other con is, the fire and stuff. It's a really cool idea, and when you do see it, it's really cool. But they make references to a few deaths that happen off screen, and it's like, you're doing a horror movie, you should show us this stuff, but it happens off screen, and when it does happen, it's this weird special effects show, which would have been cooler at the end, but Spontaneous Combustion really should be this big surprising thing, and then they go up in smoke, but here it's like, oh, whoa, the firepower, can you see it, run through the air, and it's doing all this crazy stuff, when it really should just be like that, like you go up, but it turns into a weird, overly drawn-out special effects show whenever you do see it. That being said, I think the first death you actually see is a cameo from John Landis, so that is pretty cool. But yeah, it was just filmed in a weirder, more overly drawn-out way than I would have wanted. But it's okay. That's the thing, is I feel like with a few tweaks, if you push the conspiracy angle, and if you included more of the deaths and you had them be like, just focus on being really terrifying rather than being these special effects shows, it could have come out a lot better. That being said, it is good to see Tobe Hooper, and Brad Dourif is a really cool addition, and it is worth seeing if you care about those two guys. And there's a few good parts, but overall, narratively, it's just not clear, and it's kind of hard to follow, and it's not the best, but it's fine, and that's the thing, I feel like maybe if they had given the script one more revision, if they had focused on character, and if they just changed how when you actually saw the deaths, that's, I think, if they made it just quick and sudden, because it's spontaneous combustion, it's supposed to be a surprise. I don't know. Overall, this one was fine. If you're fans of Dourif and Hooper, go ahead and check it out. But, it was just, I found it to be a little bit of a mess, but the parts that were good, and it's worth seeing if you're a horror geek, but, it is kind of flawed. But I did have enough fun with it, so, check it out if you want. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom if you want to see more. There'll be more down there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom.